Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back President and CEO of United States Tour Operators Association, Terry Dale.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for starting your day with us again. So, Mother Nature flexed her muscle and we didn't get to the beach last night. I was disappointed. But you know what I learned from that? It doesn't matter whether it's the beach or ballroom. It's all about the people. And last night, we reconnected, got reacquainted, got caught up, and it was a great night. And I want to thank the resort for doing a wonderful job in switching gears from the beach and bringing it in-house. So let's recognize the Boca Raton Resort. So, as you know, I'm going to ask you again, please use the hashtag #TravelTogether. Tell us who in the world, dead or alive, that you would like to travel with and where you would take them. And also, I forgot to say yesterday, you know, Tourism Cares has a fabulous auction going on right outside our door. It will close later today, so make sure you check it out. Some wonderful things that you can purchase and support a great cause. So, you know, speakers always have this point in the program where they say, you know, this next speaker really needs no introduction. So I'm going to say it. This next speaker really needs no introduction. But I will say, I now consider her, now that it's her third time joining us, an unofficial ambassador or official ambassador of USTOA. Please recognize Anita Mandriata. Anita? Take it over.
Thank you very much. And I must say, I was very curious to know what music the technical team would use this morning when they came up. Because, Jerry, when you came up yesterday, they played American Woman, and I wasn't quite sure. So, you can interpret that as you will. But to you all, a very, very good morning. It is a delight to be back here. To the board of USTOA, to Terry, to all of you in the USTOA community, and dear friends, thank you very much for joining us. I am going to say, though, that we have set up today, based on cameras and movement and hangovers, specific seating. So this is the Bloody Mary section, as we like to call it, for people who are going to be sneaking in late, like those dozen people in the back. That's also where the naps are going to be taking place, because the cameras are pointing this way. So if anyone would like to move to this side at any point, please do strongly encourage it. Otherwise, Bloody Marys are served at about 10:30 this morning, so you'll be fine. But I must say, it is a joy to be back, and full credit to Terry, because he decided he wanted to do something different this year. And I recall vividly when he contacted me and said, let's shake it up a little bit. Do you know about TED Talks? So, of course, absolutely familiar with it, familiar with the style. He wanted to do something that was going to be unique. It was going to be fresh. It was going to stretch us out of our tourism mindsets and look at other industries and look at other thought leaders who are going to come in here and make sure that this session is inspiring. So we set it up to think, how are we going to do this? Who are we going to get? And as per usual, USTOA found some of the best speakers in the world. So we are delighted to have them here with us, and we thank you all very much. But when I started tweeting out about the program and what was happening with the USTOA TED Talks, as I was tweeting and I put in TED, @TED popped up. And I suddenly thought, ooh dear, I wonder how TED would feel about us using their name. So I thought, okay, these are going to be the USTOA Terry Talks. So I welcome you all to the first ever USTOA Terry Talks. We have with us, as I said, some fantastic speakers. We're going to be doing this in two different sections. I'm going to firstly have a one-on-one conversation with, aside from Terry Dale and Mr. Al Mershon, he's probably one of my favorite people in the global travel and tourism industry. We're going to have a 10-minute conversation about a country that all of us have enormous affection for, but we have some questions about. We're then going to have the conversations in TED style, and we have a quick fire, and all of the presenters have been warned. They have 8 minutes. 8 minutes to get their specific message across. I will then come up and do a quick little Q&A of just one question, and then the trap door opens and they disappear, and the next speaker comes up. And you'll see it is indeed going to move us very quickly, so keep up with the pace, enjoy the session, and we thank you again for joining us. With that, This man is someone who I have had the pleasure of working with for the last 3 years, since he became the Minister of Tourism, and he is truly exemplary. He is a man who is visible, he is accessible, he is courageous, he is visionary, and he is, as I like to refer to him, a heat-seeking missile when it comes to travel advisories. If you put an advisory on his country, he will be on your doorstep the next morning. His name is Hisham Zazou, and he is the beautiful Honorable Minister of Tourism of Egypt.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you very, very much for joining us.
Thank you for receiving me. Thank you.
And I have to put a little personal note in. Last year, we had the honor of having with us on stage El-Hami, who is truly one of the architects when it comes to the constitution of the new Egypt. We now have with us a man who has literally crossed the world to be here. You're giving us your presence, and that is more than anything, such a statement of the importance of this market in bringing your country back to life and tourism, which truly is the lifeblood of your people. Everyone wants to go to Egypt. Everyone knows the destination, but they're not sure about going now. What do we need to know?
Well, actually, Anita, I'm coming for this purpose. I'm telling everybody here in this room and their clients, this is the time. Now is the word for Egypt. We've just had 2 revolutions. We are out of the revolutionary mood, and we're back to business. We're open to business. The country is now stable and is moving to build our economy. Less than 6 months ago, we had just 1% growth rates. Today, 3.6. That means Egypt is starting to work and build itself once again. I invite everyone in this room and whoever they deal with to come and enjoy Egypt more than ever before.
You spent last year, this year actually, not last year, we're not into 2015 yet, speaking directly with ministers of foreign affairs around the world because of the very quick putting on of travel advisories on your country. Tell us how you managed to shift understanding as to why the charters need to come back, why the tourists need to come back, and why the tourists need to come back.
Thank you for the question, because I think I'm, like Egypt, inventing history when it comes to tourism and politics. I said this file is the #1 file for me. It's exactly like inviting somebody to your home, and then you just close the door and tell him, please come in. How can he come in? The travel advisory was the main hurdle, obstacle for this. So I told the president, told my boss, the prime minister, please give me the opportunity to move around. I spoke to Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I did something right, apparently, because it was lifted and eased off. Actually, this week I'm going to Washington. I'm going to meet John Kerry and talk to him for the future, because it is not fair, Anita, for countries to take the decision like that, and you find people really devastated because of such a decision. It should be time-specific, geographically specific, and most of all, you should consult with the host country, in this case, Egypt, and this did not happen. Let me tell you something. You've been to Egypt less than a year ago. You remember how it looked, Luxor, at the time? This fantastic city, empty, nobody was there. One day I was there during that time, and a guy came running up to my car, telling me, Mr. Minister, please, look, I'm a Kalash owner. This is my horse. This is my kid. I came to a point, sir, I do not have the money to feed either the horse or the boy. Imagine this. This is something that killed me. And that gave me the energy to move around and talk to people from the heart, to the minds. And it worked. Now the business is flowing out of Europe. I look forward to flow out of this country, this great country.
Brilliant, thank you. Because I think to your point, there are issues happening around the world, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Kenya, whether it's here at home in the US.
Right.
Understanding the warnings and their relevance or their irrelevance is so important, because tourism is not just about the tourists. It's the people of the country who literally feed their children based on what they do on a daily basis.
Exactly, and let me tell you something, Anita, and tell everybody in this room, can you imagine with what's happening here in the US, in Missouri and New York and whatever, can you imagine somebody saying, do not travel to New York or do not travel to this country? Imagine this happening. The effect on this, nobody's just even thinking of that dimension to it. So why Egypt? if things are all right, things are stable. Media doesn't help sometimes, and that's why we need to go around, educate people, tell them the real story, tell them the real what is happening in this country, and think about it. And I'm asking everybody in this room, just think about this.
And it's interesting you say that, because in many ways, it's the messengers of your message that are so important.
Absolutely.
With that, USTOA has been a very strong supporter of Egypt, both with Terry coming to Luxor in January to participate in the Tourism and Aviation Conference representing the American market, the work that's been done with Travel Together this past year through Egypt, the way in which, for instance, the travel corporation's entry back into Egypt is being so strongly partnered with you to make sure there's a full thrust. Going forward, what do you need from this great community of tourism leaders?
We are partners. That's my message. We are partners with you, with your help, with your backing. We can put the message across like what I did with our partners in other parts of the world, source markets like in Europe. And it worked. We need your help to convince people. And then they themselves, and that's an extended invitation through the tour operators to come on educational trips to see for themselves what is the situation on the ground. I won't paint a rosy picture. They have to come and see, and I tell them this is the right time to do it. Because we just put taboos and say, well, okay, maybe in 6 months' time and 1 year. And I ask, why 6 months? Why 1 year? Let's do it now. Come and see, and let's push it. And it's a gold mine for them, because Egypt is a good destination to sell. It has been there for the past 5,000 years and more. It will remain for another 50,000 years to come. It's a guaranteed sell in that.
With that, you had a very interesting story to tell around some discounting that you did. So I believe you could make a trip to Egypt for £1. Can you please share with this audience that little trick that you did?
I was in Italy talking to one of the big shakers and movers in this country, and I told them, Italians have always been coming to Egypt. You know, they were the first to invent the 1 million club members to Egypt. 1 million tourists used to come back before 2011, before the revolution. And he said, yes. I said, why is the numbers dwindling down? There is no reason whatsoever. He said, it's fear. And I say, does fear have a price? And he said, what do you mean? I said, okay, I give you that offer now. You have a hotel. Would you start commuting between Italy and Egypt for 1 week for the maximum number of people for €1? I give you the plane, you give me the hotel. So, and see what will happen. The following morning, he made the advertisement, and the whole of Italy was booking Egypt. We had 1 million people wanting to come for that €1. So yes, fear has a price. So it's not a matter of, it's a matter of educating people about the reality. And it worked. So I won't do it for $1, by the way.
So with that, we have your messengers around us. When they go back to work on Monday, what are the 2 messages you want them to be able to pass on to their customers?
This is the time to go to Egypt, where the pyramids is not congested. Luxor and Karnak temples you can enjoy. It is very good value for money nowadays. You can make good money yourselves out of selling it, and let's start together. You are our partners. I'm committed 100%, and please put my email and send whatever you need. We will work together in a partnership mood, in co-marketing, $1 against $1 in that respect, and whatever it takes you. I spoke to our national carrier, Egypt Air, and told them, listen to these guys and ask them, what is the right price level to come over to my country? I mean business.
And to that point, when you say $1 against $1, it's literally taking that much value from your own bank and putting it into making sure the destination works for all of these people itself.
Right.
So if we look at it and we look at the last 90 seconds that we have, a year from now, when we see you, what is the message you want to share with this audience?
I'd like to come in this chair and see all these guys here in this room and tell them, thank you for your business to Egypt. That's my message to all of you.
Clearly, this is a man of action, and I dare any of you to argue back with this gentleman about the timing itself. He truly is saying, contact me, meaning him, me. His email address has been posted purposely. That was a request from him. And that is not an email address that goes to a general admin box in your office.
To me.
He responds. He responds directly. And having worked with this gentleman for many years, I know that when this man rattles a cage, he takes a baseball bat to it. So if you want action, as we've seen recently, this is the email address to have. In terms of looking at the US specifically, there is a new face of Egypt that is about to take office. May I please ask you to do the introduction of the changeover of your leadership?
Well, Mohammed Higazi, I do thank you, Mohammed. He was the manager in charge for the past 6 years. Stand up, Mohammed. Thank you for your good work. And replacing him, a new Mohammed. This is a lady, Gawahir. She's taking office. I wish you luck, Gawahir, and don't fail me. These people are looking to see if we're meaning what we say or not. Thank you.
Brilliant. With that, a very loving shukran.
Thank you.
For being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Best of luck when you meet with Secretary Kerry. We wish you well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. We're now going to have a very quick change of staging and change of pace. It is time to enter the 2014 Terry Talks. So with that, I would like to introduce, please, my first speaker, Dr. Peter Raschuti. He is a man who has the eye on the markets and gets quite an excitement about making sense of all that seems very nonsensical to us. He's also a very brave man because he took the challenge of Terry Dale to be able to explain the trends of 2015 in 480 seconds. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I've taught there so long that a very strange thing is happening. Undergraduates are coming up to me and saying, my mother had you. And you think to yourself, what are we talking about here? So I am very optimistic about the U.S. economy. We have made a remarkable comeback since the 08-09 financial recession. In fact, I think we are in a Goldilocks scenario right now. In other words, consumer spending is getting better week by week, month by month, year by year, and yet it's not so strong as to bring in the financial perils of things like inflation. So we're in a very, very good spot for all of you. The other big thing that hasn't even affected you yet is the significant decline in oil prices. This will be a boon to your business. It is the equivalent of a $160 billion tax cut to the U.S. consumers. And a lot of that money is going into discretionary spending. So that is a big, big deal. Let's see, if I could turn the first slide. There we go. Oh, that's what it is. Yes, it's only one piece of equipment. I didn't get that right. I'm very optimistic. People say, how is the economy doing? We worry about going into a double dip or another recession. I don't see that in the cards. There's two things I need to see to believe that we're going into a slowdown, and neither of them are flashing. The first is you need to see housing starts high but falling, and they're not. They're low and rising. The housing market is just coming back. That means a lot to consumer confidence. And then average weekly hours worked need to be high but falling, and they're not. If you're working, it might be tough to get a new job in the United States, but if you're working, they're asking you to work more and more hours. So it's not high but falling, it's high and rising. Of course, the whole term consumer confidence always seems like an odd term to me, doesn't it? To you, what is it? It's like you go to people and say, God, I'd love to go to the mall, but I guess I'd blow it. I don't even know what that would be. Let's see. I also want to be encouraging on a couple of things in here. One is that, by the way, isn't this a nice resort? Oh, beautiful, beautiful. God, the towels are so fluffy, I could barely shut my suitcase. It was, but it's, I know your focus is on an older clientele, but I want to talk to you about the young. I teach the young at the university, and I want to tell you that is a great market for you now and down the road. I think the people I'm teaching now in the last 10 or 15 years are the best students I've ever, ever had. They are smart. They want to give back to their community. This is a great group out here, and they're really misunderstood. You hear people and they go, oh, the millennials, they're living in their parents' basement and saving up for a new tattoo. You know, that's not what I'm seeing. It really isn't. Interesting things about the millennials. The women in this group are better educated than men. We see this on almost all college campuses. They tend to be 55-45 or 60-40 women. And in a third of marriages, they earn more money. So it's a very different group, and they have to be approached differently. Over the next 30 years, the population of working-age people will increase in the U.S., and that's very, very important because in Japan, Europe, in China, it'll actually be decreasing. Most economists think that that number of working-age people is really the key indicator for the strength of an economy. And this group loves to travel. They're fearless. And I notice a lot of people are traveling. You ever notice that almost every seat in the plane is taken now? You know, I was in the jetway in Dallas the other day, and there was a guy in front of me, and he was kind of shabbily dressed, and he smelled of alcohol, and he's telling me, he says, you know, I've never been on a plane. I think to myself, damn, snakes have been on a plane. You know, this is very troubling. Let's see. It is. I heard a story the other day as a biker and a really tough-looking girl, and they're walking down a city street in the middle of the night, and they pass by a jewelry store, and the woman says, oh, I'd love that ring, and the guy takes a brick and throws it in the window, grabs the ring, and he gives it to her. And then they walk about another 2 blocks, and then she sees an electronics store, and she goes, oh, I would so love to have that TV. And he takes another brick, throws it through the window, grabs the TV. Now they got the ring and the TV, and they're walking down the street, and they go another 3 blocks, and they see a Mercedes-Benz dealership. And she goes, oh, that convertible Mercedes, I've wanted that since I was a little girl. And the guy says, hey, what am I, made of bricks? So it's these are things to deal with in here. The only problem I see in the U.S. economy going forward is the idea of income inequality. There's concerns about employment, worries about savings and investment. The top 1% of the population earned 10% of the nation's income 30 years ago, and today the top 1% earns 20% of the nation's income and controls 40% of the wealth. That longer term is not a very, very good trend. But here's a good trend for you right here. This comes from the Brookings Institute. The older you get, the happier you get. And what this shows on this graph is that when you're 18, you're pretty happy because you've got like a girlfriend or a boyfriend and a driver's license. And then you go to work and you're at the bottom of the totem pole, and later on you've got teenagers in your house and you're taking care of elderly parents. And then it gets much better. So hang in there. That's really good. That's really good news. And I do think it is clear sailing in terms of the United States going forward. Now, you'd never hear this in the media. I mean, you've got to understand the media is trying to sell newspapers, sell TV spots, and they are skewed to the negative. You know, you think about it, you turn on Fox, and it's like, today in the heartland, people began eating their young. You know, or let's think of what they've told us for the last 6 years. None of it's been true. It's a fiscal cliff. Kiss your mamas goodbye, you know, sequester, restring all your guitars, and Obamacare, pack up all your stuff. Nothing happened. The economy continues to grow. We have a great basis for this economy. We're creating 200,000 new jobs each month. Yesterday it was over 300,000. There's very, very low household debt obligations. Consumer confidence is at a 7-year high. And low oil prices. The estimated price for 2015 is $75 a barrel. That will help. Eventually, you will actually see somewhat lower airfares, and I think that's really a big deal. I want to say also, New Orleans, my hometown, is doing great. Since Katrina, we've been the greatest comeback since Lazarus. We have more hotels, music venues, restaurants than we did even before the storm. And of course, the last time I saw a stage in this shape, it had a pole on it. But it's a little something from my hometown. But we're in a very, very good position in here, and I really want to encourage you. This is a time when you really ought to be thinking about being encouraged about not only the economy, but the young people coming up in it. And I think this is going to be great. By the way, those millennials, you know, I teach them for a living, and They're great. You know, I do worry about common sense sometimes, though. I had a student, you know, it just does to happen. I had a student that went to go pick up his girlfriend at her parents' house, and he goes to the door, and the dad says, "Hey, I want my daughter back by 10:15." And my guy's like, "Whoa, mid-October? Cool." You know, so it's, so we have issues. There's no doubt about that. Or as I always think of, you know, I always remember what my college roommate used to say, and he'd always say, "Peter, remember, it's not premarital sex if you have no intention of getting married." That's what he always said. There. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I must say, I didn't realize that there was a professorial version of the Duracell bunny, but I think I've now just met him. Thank you very much
Thank you
for
very
that.
much.
No, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Quick question for you.
Yep.
You have all the stats. You have all the stories. You've got some of the best jokes I've heard in a long time. You have a view about the media that I know someone's going to challenge shortly, but that's off the stats for the next session. Your brain tells you reasons to be optimistic. What does your heart tell you? Why do you as a person?
I'm very optimistic because really, you know, first of all, I'm a very lucky guy. I've got a beautiful wife and 2 teenage sons. And, you know, just getting up every day and seeing like a comeback like New Orleans has come back from Katrina and the oil spill for a while was like we were living in the Old Testament, you know. And it's made me very encouraged. And I want to just say that the other thing I'm encouraging, I'm so glad to be with you folks, is last summer I brought my family for a 3-week tour of Japan. And I had never been on a tour before. And it was the best vacation we had ever had. And I am hooked. So I'm so glad to get a chance. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much. And Peter made a very interesting point about the price of oil, which is going to have a direct impact on air pricing for next year. So that's all very good news when it comes to our industry. With that, I would love to introduce you to someone who technically has probably been in a lot of your homes for the last little while. She is a very familiar face. She is a lovely, lovely person. And technically, for me, she's family because of our CNN relationship. She's also someone who literally is the voice and the mind of making sense of what's happening in Washington. With that, please join me in welcoming the beautiful Jessica Yellen.
Thank you. Well, you just heard a lot of optimism and excitement about the future because the U.S. economy is coming back, and I think I'm going to shift the mood just a little bit to talk about the state of affairs in Washington, which isn't quite as rosy. A few weeks ago, I was asked to speak to a group of college students who wanted to talk about what is going wrong in Washington and what we can do to fix it. And their proposal was, let's discuss abolishing the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, granted, that's a somewhat radical proposal. The U.S. Congress is made up of 2 bodies. One has 100 members, the U.S. Senate. The other has 435 members, the House of Representatives. They wanted to do away with all 435 in the lower body. They think they're the roadblock to action. That's why Washington isn't working, and changing the Constitution will do the trick. Well, obviously, that's not going to happen. But I bring this up because it's a reflection of where this country is today. The fact that our youngest, our brightest, are theoretically most excited about the future, take Washington dysfunction as a foregone conclusion. They begin their business lives and their futures thinking something big needs to change. Well, as you might know, our political cartoonists have had fun with this idea because as we are exporting democracy to the rest of the world, we can't get it working here at home. And here they're blaming the Tea Party, but it's all of Washington that's stymied at the moment. If you talk to business leaders, as you all do, if you talk to education leaders across the board, families, they tell us we need a couple things. We need education reform. We need to invest in roads and bridges and tunnels and airports, infrastructure. We also need immigration reform to address the 11 million who are here without legal papers but need some kind of status, and to bring more people into the country for work. And we need to address what we just heard about flat wages and the income gap in this country. But right now, Congress is so busy fighting with itself and debating how they should be spending money, whether they should be spending money, they're in a position where we might not see them take action on any of these fronts. Now, you know, we just had a midterm election, and that means maybe there'll be change. Maybe we're going to see Congress getting its act together because the Republicans are unified and they can pass legislation that the president can decide to sign or not sign. Well, I bring you back to our Mad as Hell contingent, this Tea Party group right here, and Washington is calling them the Mad as Hell group because these are 30 to 40 folks in the Republican Party who are, quote, mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. And they are vowing to block anything this new Congress does. So here's what Congress would like to take on. With Republican leadership, they'd like corporate tax reform to make taxes more simple and lower for corporations. They'd like to do something on immigration, and not the president's plan, but something. Make it easier for more people overseas to come here and work high-skilled jobs. And then they'd like to get some trade pacts done. Now, Democrats object to aspects of this, but they could work with them. The problem is that mad as hell contingent I was telling you about, they object to all of it. And what they want to do is have a few spending fights. And guess what? They're going to get some opportunities because coming up, actually this Thursday, is the first chance for Congress to vote on shutting down government. How exciting is that? Then they'll get some, I should add, it's unlikely to happen, but they're going to spend time fighting about it. So after they decide not to shut down government, they go on vacation, they come back, pat themselves on the back for being elected, have some celebratory votes on sort of symbolic measures, and then it's a new year, time for a new debt fight. There's also time for a fight over whether doctors should be reimbursed at the current rate for taking care of the elderly and the ill. So then they get through that fight. Maybe they try to take up the other issues I've talked to you about, but there's another fight brewing. Should they fund the Export-Import Bank? A lot of them don't want to. They say money should be spent here at home, not overseas. So after that fight, they have to take off July and August because it's exhausting to be a member of Congress. Then they come back in September, pat themselves on the back. The budget expires. They have to debate spending until the next fight over the government shutdown. That fight will happen in December, and guess what happens then? The next presidential election, the first caucus begins January 2016. So these are the issues we are going to see at the forefront of that presidential election. All those issues I mentioned, immigration, education, taxes and spending, but also what will it take to make Washington work? I predict it'll be a Hillary Clinton versus Jeb Bush election. Hillary Clinton is all but already running. Jeb Bush is the likely leader. There are other names in the mix, but if you see these two face off against each other, you'll hear a lot of fighting over Iraq. She voted for Iraq. His family is the family that brought the US into wars in the Middle East. He'll have to figure out how to explain and defend that. He's also not the most adept at dealing with the national media, so you'll see some gaffes probably on his part, a lot of people chasing him down over unexpected remarks. She has a big problem and a history of mismanaging sometimes her presidential campaign, as we've seen. We'll learn if she gets over that. But in the end, it's going to be a debate over their visions for government and for how to get Washington to work. Now, I believe that a major piece of this will also be an indictment of President Clinton and his years in office. Whatever you think of the president, there's a lot of frustration over his promise to make Washington happen again. And it's been more debilitating, angrier than we've ever seen. Now, he deserves some of the blame. He gives a lot of the blame to Congress. I do know that when he came into office, they were ready to work, both sides. And missteps on both sides led to this standoff between the two of them. So the next president is going to have to clarify to the American people how he or she will be different from President Obama. Which gets me back to Americans' attitudes to Congress. Now, right now, 15% of us approve. That's down from just a few years ago at 30%, and down from 50% at the beginning of the year 2000. The whole idea of Washington was to give the people a direct voice in government. When we founded this country, there was one member in the House of Representatives for every 30,000 people. Today, one member for every 722,000 people. It's a different kind of system. They're not speaking to their constituents in the same way. They can't. So we need leaders who can. And I think the American people right now are feeling disconnected from their leadership, and their leadership is beginning to know it. It's not just the Tea Party that's mad as hell. The American people have become mad as hell. And if the next president does not refocus on Congress, does not refocus on reaching out to the American people, as the old saying goes, Americans won't take it anymore. We don't need to change our system. We need a new leadership style. And I think all the contenders who are running in the next race are aware of it, and they're going to make sure that we're a little less mad 4 years from now.
I must say, if there's one person I can count on to know when the double zero hits, that I know is going to be you. Those red lights mean something. Thank you very much for your point of view. I'm curious, when you go back and you put on your chief correspondent for the White House hat, the day after President Obama leaves office, what would his headline be in his mind versus what would the media be saying as a headline?
President Obama's headline of himself would probably be reasonable, accommodating president, oversaw historic expansion of healthcare, rescued the U.S. from the brink of financial disaster, saw the recovery of the economy, jobs growth, and expanded environmental protections across the nation while battling a resistant, intransigent, disorganized National Congress. The media's version would be historic first black president oversees sweeping expansion of healthcare, rescues from financial collapse, expands civil rights to lesbian, gay Americans, and oversees environmental expansions, while stymied by his inability to work with members of Congress that derailed the last years of his presidency.
Very interesting to see what happens. I'm going to see exactly what the wording is the day after, but from your point of view, we thank you very much. Thank you for joining us and glamorizing our stage. God bless. Thank you. And I'll take the
Picker.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And with that, as two very powerful scene setters, I'd like to welcome to the stage a gentleman who is technically the host of USTOA from a state perspective. He is the CEO of Visit Florida. Please welcome the lovely William Seckham.
Thank you
very much.
Great to be here.
In the English way.
Thank you. And welcome to the Sunshine State. It's awesome to be here. It's great to have you here. I guess I'm going to shift gears from politics and economics a little bit and talk a little bit more about marketing. At Visit Florida, our vision is to establish Florida as the #1 travel destination in the world. We're coming up on 2014. It'll be our 4th consecutive record year. We'll welcome nearly 100 million visitors to the state from every place in the United States and 184 different countries. This hospitality industry in the state of Florida employs over 1.1 million Floridians. So it's very important that we do this and we get it right. Really here to talk about storytelling. And what is the power? At the Visit Florida, our state budget this year is about $75 million. Our overall budget is right now $215 million. And historically, we've been a co-op marketing business. And it's worked very, very well for the state of Florida. Again, 100 million visitors. About 5 years ago, we got really involved in social media and really started to learn more about how that metric changes the dynamics of marketing. And then got involved in a really cool content marketing program. All of these on their own worked really, really well. At the end of the day, the sweet spot is how we work with them together in a system. And really, storytelling is the core to everything that we do. How do we inspire people to choose to spend their hard-earned money and their precious vacation time in the Sunshine State versus incredible destinations all around the United States and certainly all around the world? And we really focus on storytelling. And trying to do that throughout the entire process of the travel planning cycle, from inspiration to decision to action. And one of the things that we did a couple years ago that was really, really cool is we hired a guy that was a senior editor of the St. Pete Times, and he's hired a gentleman that was the managing editor of the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel. And we built out a content marketing machine. We have over 100 professional videographers, photographers, photojournalists, and they're creating extraordinary content. I believe that we at Visit Florida now, through this network of about 100 professional journalists, and 10 full-time bloggers, we're producing more travel-related content, again, inspiring people every single day. And we're not only distributing that on our website, but at any place around the world. You all are welcome to any of this travel content. It's featured in Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Philly.com, Huffington Post. It's distributed content. It's distributed storytelling. I don't really care who makes the money on the advertising. I just want to tell an amazing, compelling story. That was an example of a time-lapse photography series that we ran featuring destinations throughout the state. And the content can be really exciting and really compelling. But it's not just what our 100 writers are doing or these videographers are doing. Content and storytelling now in this environment has a lot of really, really cool options. I'm sure most of you all are aware of Google Street View, and you've seen that car drive down the road with the big camera on top. This is a project we undertook last summer. We hired 4 guys, put that camera on a backpack, and we walked there's 825 miles of beaches in Florida. 740 of those are accessible to you and I, and we walked every single mile of that beach and captured that imagery and stuck it together. So now you can go onto any Google map and virtually walk the shores of Florida's beaches. So how do you make that kind of 740, I think it was 2 million some steps. How do you make that compellable, digestible? This is a product that now sits on visitflorida.com. You start to see it in a lot of places around the digital sphere now, where you can dial in. Do I want to have a family-friendly vacation? Do I want an action-packed vacation? Is this secluded or is where, what kind of destination I want? You move those dials around, it picks a destination, shows you the ones that are the most likely to fit what you want to do, and then you click on that and you can virtually walk the shores of Florida's beaches, and that beach that's most ideally suited to the vacation that you're looking for today. Again, incredible storytelling, very, very powerful storytelling, and as you see here, over 60 million people have virtually walked the shores of Florida's beaches in the last 3 months. That's the kind of engaging storytelling that we're trying to do, and putting it into a place where co-op marketing, storytelling, and social media, when you're able to share this, all work together. Doing the same thing kind of in the action phase, and not only in English, but in Spanish and Portuguese and French, really providing a tool that allows our international visitors to explore Florida, not only while they're planning the trip, but also while they're here, and help them guide their vacation destination decisions. And all that's awesome. And as proud as I am of the incredible work that Visit Florida does with destination marketing initiatives and content and just traditional advertising, at the end of the day, there's nothing that's going to be more powerful than the advice of friends and relatives in travel. And you all know that. The most powerful asset I have at the state of Florida is the fact that nearly 100 million people are going to come and enjoy the sunshine and the Sunshine State. And it's the fact that they're now going home and they're not just doing the thing that I did when I was a kid and going to the basement and looking at a slideshow. We're not just talking around the water cooler, we're sharing that. We're sharing it in real time on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So I have 100 million people that are now brand advocates, and how do we unleash those people to really help us tell our story? And that's a really exciting project. We did a new campaign called Love FL, encouraging the 19 million Floridians and then hopefully the 100 million visitors to share what they love about the Sunshine State. And really in just a short year, it's been fantastic to see what happens. We take all that imagery that people are sharing and hashtagging LoveFL, and we stream that into visitflorida.com. It's the most visited destination marketing site in the country, but I'll tell you, what I tell somebody to do has nothing, and all those great stories that we have nothing compared to the power of people like you. So hashtag, take a picture, go out on the beach, and it'll be sunny today. You won't get rained out today. And then hashtag at LoveFL and share what you love the most about Florida. And the power of that is truly extraordinary. And the power of the ability for us as a destination to tap into that is really the kind of the confluence of great co-op marketing ideas, really, really powerful content and story ideas, distributed content, and all that weave together with the power of social media and the power of the advice of friends and relatives. So this is a little spot that we are running today to help us get all of our famous Floridian ambassadors into the game. So I'd say that in the secret sauce of moving forward, and as I start to look at our job in the state of Florida, I have a new goal of getting to 127 million visitors by 2020. So another 30 million visitors in the next 5 years. And I can tell you that if we're going to be successful in doing that, not just at Visit Florida, but our entire industry and all of our partners like you, it's going to take a new dimension in terms of consumer marketing. It's going to have to be that real confluence of the inspirational storytelling, the tapping into the social media networks and allowing friends and family to chime in on that conversation and be a part of the decision-making process, because the things that have made the state of Florida and Visit Florida and our destination marketing so extraordinarily successful for the last 5 years are not going to be the same tools and the same mechanisms that are going to work in the next 5 years. And again, the sweet sauce to me is storytelling, and it's that inspiration on a personal level, much more powerful, and the connection between storytelling, great stories, and social media is going to be the sweet sauce that we're at least banking our money on to get to the next 30 million visitors in the next 5 years. So with that, I'd love to thank you all for joining us in the Sunshine State, and ask you to remember to hashtag LoveFL your favorite experience and help us do our job as well. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks for having me.
I have a question for you.
Yes,
I'm very
ma'am.
curious. We have an important point in our tourism industry's life of moving from this generation to, as we discussed yesterday, the millennials, and everyone knows. Your work is a remarkable demonstration of how we have had to change our traditional ways of marketing into literally releasing the cameras to the next generation of travelers. You as a leader, that must have caused a bit of a knot in your stomach sometimes. How did you work through that as the guardian angel of the brand and releasing that to
I think it comes down to all of us that at the end of the day, we've never owned our brand. We've pretended to own our brand. Really, our brand is what lives, and that's where it all started, right? It's the stamp on the hide. I mean, the brand is not ours to own. The brand is what is demonstrated and being the ambassadors around the world. It's no different from coming, the most powerful advice I ever had was a friend and family, a good buddy of mine in college, and his wife came back and spent 6 months traveling Europe, said the best thing we ever did was go to Bodrum, Turkey. And so I had the opportunity to go on a trip, took my girlfriend at the time, got engaged at Bodrum, Turkey. Never would have known what Bodrum was, any advertising in the world, but it was advice of a trusted friend telling me about an extraordinary experience, and that's where I chose to make another big move. So.
Brilliant, because I think there's an interesting, maturity is not the right word, but a faith in leadership to make that shift and literally hand over the messaging to the people who are here and experiencing it. And with that, we thank you very much for booking the sunshine for us, hosting us here, and very much gracing our stage.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So as we continue, I was going to say that we're going to take a little commercial break from the TED Talks so that our speakers can catch their breath before we go into the last three. But it's actually not a commercial break. It's a caring break, because I'm going to invite to the stage a gentleman who should be very familiar to all of you, as he is really the champion of an organization that is the heart of why we do what we do. It's, again, as I said, tourism's not just about the tourists, it's the impact that it makes on communities, on environments, on people's futures. And with that, USTOA has a very special partnership with Tourism Cares. I'd like to introduce, please, and welcome to the stage, Michael Ray.
Great intro.
Michael is not going to be given 480 seconds and have to take a deep breath and talk, because we're actually going to talk this through ourselves. So Michael, I need to understand from you, when you look at where Tourism Care started and where we are today, you're very excited about it.
Yep.
Tell me about Tourism Cares today and how it's evolved.
Yep. Tourism Cares is the community for travel and tourism for giving and volunteering. Many of you know this, but we're really shifting to building and empowering and engaging this incredible community. When I speak about community, I'm talking about everybody in here. What's our favorite hashtag today other than Love Florida? Travel together. I mean, we absolutely believe that we give better together, that giving goes hand in hand with travel, and there's some things we should do together. There's disasters, there's things that need all of us piling onto a certain problem, and there's also so much we can learn from one another. So I've been CEO for a year and a half. I am excited. It's been an incredible year and a half. But one of the most amazing things is there's so much that's happened that's been happening for decades. So when we think about this community giving and volunteering, we have leaders like Tread Right at Travel Corporation, we have Abercrombie & Kent Philanthropy, we have Intrepid, we have Talc, we have Colette. We have people that have been doing this that we should all learn from, me especially. We have a lot of people in the middle of our community that we're building that are testing things out, have done some good things, but want to be more strategic. And we have a lot of people that just want to start out. But we're really, probably our biggest shift is our job is to engage, craft, inspire, catalyze, facilitate this community. And it's about what you want to do, and we want to make it work better. So, I mean, for those that don't know, we do 3 basic things. We invest in destinations that are emerging or at risk with grants and volunteering and different interventions. We support the next generation of our workforce through scholarships and mentoring. And we help and improve everybody's philanthropy through bringing everybody together and consulting.
With those 3 pillars, though, Mike, how do you decide which country, which project should be the beneficiary of Tourism Cares?
It's a question I've gotten a lot the last year, and we've actually revisited the criteria. And the short answer is our community wants to work where we can make the greatest difference with what our community has to offer. And the travel community has a lot to offer that's really special and inherent to it. So I'll give you 2 quick examples, a domestic one and an international one. Domestically, 3 weeks ago, 300 people, probably around 20 or 30 people in this room were in Los Angeles. For the very first time, we did a big volunteer program in Los Angeles. And around a year ago, we were scouting out Los Angeles. Where should we go? And we looked at a number of places. We looked at the Santa Monica Pier. I could ask people to raise their hands. I'm sure a lot of people have been to the Santa Monica Pier. Does the Santa Monica Pier need us? Does it need our resources? Does it need more tourists? So we didn't go to the Santa Monica Pier. We went around an hour south of there to San Pedro, California. And even in the last couple of days, I've spoken to some people that know San Pedro and live in Los Angeles. Like, San Pedro, why would I go to San Pedro? That's precisely why we went to San Pedro. They have amazing stuff to offer. There's a new battleship there, it's the USS Iowa, that 3 years ago was in mothballs in San Francisco. There's a merchant marine. There's incredible histories around the dockyards in World War II and the Liberty ships. There's an aquarium. There's a maritime museum. So that's why we chose San Pedro, because they needed us. They had stuff that needed restoring that had value. It was a great time to go. LA Tourism had launched a LA waterfront program. So we brought all our resources to a place that really needed us so we could make a big difference.
So you're focusing on infrastructure that will then turn the switch back on tourism activity, which will then switch back the tourism economy ultimately.
Yeah. And so we brought volunteerism, we brought some financial aid, we brought the media, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then internationally, it's some of the same stuff. We want to work where we can really, really make a difference. So one of our international priorities is Myanmar. There's a couple reasons for choosing Myanmar. One is there's real social need in Myanmar. You know, we actually did an exercise plotting many of the countries we might work against the UN Human Development Index. So we want to work in a place where the growth of tourism, especially early on, can make a big difference for communities, as you said. We want to be relevant. We want to support our community overseas in working in a place that matters. And I know USTOA members have a top emerging market in Myanmar, so a lot of people are working there. And then lastly, there's a bit about timing. Same thing with San Pedro with the launch of the LA waterfront. Getting into a country like Myanmar that's still pretty early in its tourism boom, and it's a boom town, is what we want to do. So we made our first investment for a group to go into Myanmar and do social enterprise and child-safe tourism.
How do you measure success? What are the metrics that you use?
Measuring is absolutely important. When I was at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Education, my job was measuring the portfolio and what works. So, you know, take our San Pedro program, for example. What did we set out to do in San Pedro? Well, the basic thing was we brought a lot of work and a lot of value. So we brought around $100,000 of labor, paint, light bulbs to the USS Iowa, the battleship, and to the region. We got all the work done. We made great contributions to the battleship. They're going to be able to open a new part of the ship, in part because of us. So, you know, did we get the job done? Done, yes. Many of our volunteers, some people in here filled out our post-trip survey, post-experience survey, like you do on your trips. Was it a success for our volunteers? How do we know that? You know, we now have probably a 10-event baseline on satisfaction from our volunteers. They're important. If our community is not engaged and thrilled by what we're doing, that's a big part of it. And then another one of our goals in San Pedro was, well, to bring the media, to bring visibility, to use our influence both in the industry and in the community to let people know, hey, San Pedro's actually kind of cool, come down for a day. So we were in the LA Times, we were in the CBS Evening News, and then something that's very special to us, I'm not sure what'll happen, but a couple tour operators like, wow, we go to the USS Missouri in Hawaii, we do museum ships elsewhere, maybe we should bring some people here. And that's the ultimate win-win, which is it's a win for the tourist that's discovering a new place, it's a win for the company, and it's a win for the destination.
But it must be so hard for you to make those choices.
It's tough.
Because with that in mind, and thinking of the Honorable Minister of Tourism of Egypt, thinking of countries like Kenya, the Philippines, part of the work that the UNWTO does, which is very linked to what you're doing, is making places know you're not alone and you're not forgotten. And by bringing that spotlight back. What's lovely as well, as you've said it a few times, community's not about the people out there. It's the people right in here. This is a community of leaders. What do you need from USTOA going forward?
Three things. One is, as you've heard about this, as we heard about earlier, the younger generation talks about giving back to community. I, of course, heard that and said I'm going to use that later on. As well as some jokes I'll use separately next time I talk, but you've already heard them. Just to reflect on what giving and volunteering in community means to you and your company and your employees. You know, we believe very strongly, and there's data out there that shows that giving back is important. Certainly it's important to destinations and stewardship and long-term quality of our destinations. There's certainly data I presented last year, it's important to employees, but it's also important to our clients, to millennials, to the active elderly, the people that we teach, to people in between. So just reflect on, are you making the right investments in giving and volunteering for your company? And that's another one of our big shifts. It's not about us, it's not about our priorities. Philanthropy is personal. And we do believe that there's something the tourism industry should do together, but ultimately it's about what is going to drive your company, your destinations, your demographic. So are you getting the most of it? So that's simply a request, to think about how you engage. And I think going forward, I think philanthropy and social giving is just picking up steam. It's picked up a lot of steam in the last decade, but I think it's here to stay, just like millennials. So I think sort of thinking about that. And of course, the second part is we're here to help. You know, so this community, we are facilitators, we are stewards of it, we are protagonists and catalysts, but it's your community. It's your destination. So, you know, anything, you know, so we have a new corporate membership program. We would love to have this time next year, everybody here be a member. We've made it easy. Between now and New Year's Eve, we have a match from the board. 1-to-1 is a special incentive to get people in the door. But, you know, find me. There's many board of directors, if you know any of them. Brad Finkel of TripMate is our chairman. Derek Hyden-Masher is our vice chairman. Lauren Fauché, Dan Sullivan, Terry Dale's on our board. So if you want to hear more, come find me, find a director. Let's use everybody's one-on-one match. And then I think lastly, as Terry said, shop. Get in bidding wars, fight each other, get out your pens, hit the silent auction hard, and buy something for somebody else.
Quietly.
Hard, or buy something for yourself, buy a gift. There's great deals out there, and thank you to everybody that's donated to the auction, and thanks to our sponsors.
Last question for you.
Yep.
You bring, and Tourism Cares brings, an enormous amount of expertise when it comes to not just doing things right in this type of area of giving back, but doing the right things. Yep. How can these members use you to help answer some of those questions for their businesses?
Yep.
How can that be used?
There's two tracks. I mean, I come from philanthropy, not travel, and I've done 20 years of philanthropic consulting to corporations, families, high net worth individuals. So, and we've done some consulting before. So to some extent, we can do consulting for any individual company, but the far better answer is, last year and going forward, we launched a peer learning group of people at different companies that do giving and volunteering. And some of them are the full-time people, some of them are the people that have 1% of their job, and their job is actually a 120% job that does giving and volunteering. But we brought some of those folks together to share best practices, to share their experiences. We're launching a full 5-part series in 2015. So it's really, again, I mean, there's so many people that have been doing this for 20 years longer than I have. So it's learning from them, learning with new entrants, people with new ideas, learning from the veterans, And again, we're here to just stir the pot, bring everybody together, and make it happen.
That's brilliant. So again, this is the email address you need to add on to the list coming out of today's sessions. Mike, we thank you very much. Thank you for caring, and thank you for sharing that message with us. Thank you very much. Brilliant. We are now getting back into the race of the Terry Talks, and the perfect person to kick it off is a man who has represented Team USA 3 times in the Winter Olympics and is the very proud holder of a gold medal. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce to the stage the lovely Stephen Messler, who has his 480 seconds to have another win. Thank you. Thanks.
Believe and succeed. See it, and you can make it happen. We've been hearing a lot about that lately, and that's possibly what you'd think that you would hear from an Olympic champion who's hopping on stage to talk about success. But I'm here to take a different path. I'm here to talk about a different path, and that myself and a lot of people I know, and Egypt as well, as we just learned this morning, find success in another way. They find success through problems, through solving problems. And I argue that my success and that of a lot of people I know comes because I wake up every day with a problem. And that some of the greatest successes and innovations in this world come from tackling those problems head on. From the dawn of time to the moment we're born, we are birthed to act and react. Fight or flight, that's how we're built, that's how we're made. It's the reason why a stack of books and the largest cup of coffee are how most of us got here. But it's also what the research tells us. And since we're in Florida, I thought I'd bring along with me a golf example. And the research talks about something called loss aversion. Loss aversion is, in essence, solving and our ability and how we work and deal with problems. And the golf example is researchers took a look at 2.5 million putts on the PGA Tour. And they looked at them they kind of took everything as equal as they could. They looked at distance from the hole, the amount of time on the putt, the amount of time on the green, the length, and all these things. And when all things were equal, what they found was that professional golfers made their birdie putts 2% less often than their par putts. Those 2% less often gap turns into 1 stroke per tournament, which the top 20 golfers, that's a $640,000 problem that they have. And the question is why? Why are they doing that? And the answer is loss aversion. Which one of these is us solving a problem? And the question also comes down to is how are we thinking about that, and how are we meant to deal with that? Well, you make a birdie and you save a par. Which one's solving a problem? Which one is putting ourselves in a situation where we have to save something, we have to find a problem and solve it? And it's quite obviously par. Now, from a sports psychologist aspect, if you can figure out how to get into a golfer's head and make them think that they're saving birdie, it's probably some decent money to be made, about $640,896 to be exact, per golfer. And yes, Tiger Woods, at the height of his career, fell prey to loss aversion. He's fell prey to other problems since then. Now we'll take a look at this mean, lean, non-smiling machine back at University of Florida from my days up in Gainesville when I was a track athlete, from a personal standpoint. I wanted to be an Olympian. I wanted to be an Olympic champion. And track wasn't going to do it. So I decided I was going to bobsled, but I had problems to solve. I was too small, I was too weak, and I couldn't stay healthy to save my life. So how do you solve that? So what my bobsled career and my day looked like for 10 years was this. Size problem, solved, 8 meals a day. Sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds awesome. Do it for 6 months, or 3 days, let alone for 10 years, and we'll see how you feel about it. Thank God I can get back to my normal body. Strength problem, solved. 2 training sessions a day. Getting to the gym, doing things right, having amazing people around me. Health problem, solved. Having good therapists. Doing this on a day-to-day basis. From problems comes success. From problems come our ability to find our way around it. And for me, it turned into a really pretty solid day. At the end of it, from a problem that I solved. Now let's look at this from a different angle. You see a problem here? It's really hard to see a problem in that, isn't it? This is what successful people do. They go to schools, they give talks, They inspire the next generation and show them that it's not all cupcakes and rainbows to get to where you want to go. But the problem for me was I was at the end of my career, I was going to schools, and this is a school in New York City. I was going to schools a lot, and when I would walk out, I would realize I was never going to see those kids again. I had a frequency problem. In order for kids to learn, they need to see it over and over. In order for humans to learn, we need to see things over and over. There's that magic marketing number of 7, where we have to see something 7 times to learn it. Kids see somebody once and they're gone. There's an impact problem. There's no way for me to know. When you go to walk into a school, you go, if 1 or 2 kids listened, it was worth my time. But there's no way for you to know. And there's a relationship problem. They only saw me once. They didn't know who I was. So the question is, how do we solve that? Frequency, it's beautiful technology. So the nonprofit organization that my sister and I started, my sister has her PhD in education, my proud big brother, is called Classroom Champions, and we use technology to form relationships between people doing amazing things and underserved classrooms around the US, Canada, Costa Rica. We're working in the Caribbean now. And through the use of technology, we can make that relationship efficient and make that frequency stick. Here's Merrill Davis and Charlie White teaching kids about community and goal setting and leadership. Relationship or frequency problem solved through technology. Impact, how do you know you made a difference? Through technology, kids are given the chance to show the mentors that have been assigned to them what they're doing with them. Here's a little girl in Florida, just up the road in Maitland, Florida, showing her mentor and Olympian Emily Cook that she's made a difference in her life. Here's children in Philadelphia with their teacher doing a video presentation about what they've done for community. And in the bottom right corner is kids outside of Houston, Texas, showing off the work in the hallways. The impact problem is solved because we're also able to look at metrics, because we have a full program over a full year, and we see statistically significant changes in kids' grit and resilience and engagement and interpersonal skills. In teachers, we invest in our teachers, and we see job performance goes up, and leadership ability goes up. And in our mentors, communication, because they get to repeat the process over and over, and they have a support system. Impact problem solved. And lastly, relationship. This is how this generation creates relationships. We've heard it already. We've heard it talked about. This is what they do. So instead of saying, talk to each other, do these things, we're going to take that and we're going to utilize that and form relationships through technology. So whether you're a caveman, a college student, a professional golfer, or somebody who just wants to make a difference in this world, I'm going to say to you, the biggest things in this world that are happening, the biggest successes, the biggest innovations, are happening because we're finding a problem. And so tomorrow, I'm going to tell you to wake up with a problem and just spend the rest of the day trying to solve it. Thank you. Pick this up.
I thought we get to keep the hardware. I must say, Stephen's fantastic, and he's proven he's definitely a man that seeks for speed, because we have 1 minute credit, for which I thank you very much.
Yeah, perfect. Well, you're welcome.
I have a question for you, which I'm going to use this platform to be greedy and ask. What it takes to become an Olympian is huge dedication, and everything else in your life pretty much stops. The moment when you decided, bobsledding, this is it. Tell me about that moment.
That moment happened when I was sitting on my couch at the University of Florida, and I was 2 days out of elbow surgery, and I was sitting on my couch, and I was sitting there, and I don't know whether it was the painkillers they had running through me or what it was, but I realized that I was looking back at my career, and I was national champion in high school in track and field. I was on a scholarship to the University of Florida, which is the place in the US. It's one of those schools you go to for athletic success. And I was hurt every single year for 5 years in a row. And this elbow surgery was kind of the final nail in the coffin. I thought, well, I guess I'm done. I guess I peaked athletically at 17 years old, and I was applying to grad schools, I'm gonna move on. And then something inside of me thought, like, I'm not done yet. Like, I'm not ready to be done. And this is 2000, so I got on Yahoo, and I pecked away with one arm and found an email address for the Olympic Committee and emailed them and said, I'm this big, this strong, this fast, can I do this? And the next day I got emails back, and then I started training, and my mom said, get a job. What are you doing? And I said, just give me a year. And that was in 2000, and 10 years later I was on the top of the mountain getting to do what I did. And 4 years later now, I get to run an organization that takes Olympians and Paralympians and people who have similar stories, whether you're an Olympian, a Paralympian, an Olympic gold medalist, or an engineer at Google that we've started working with. You've set goals, you've failed, you've persevered, and kids need to hear that story. And we have the efficiency now to be able to do that with technology, and we can reach anywhere. And that's the most exciting thing for me now.
It's a great story, and I must say, I'm personally very delighted because based on your theory, we get to have you back 6 more times for you to make an impact. So for this moment, we thank you very much. God bless, go well, and thank you for sharing your story. In the spirit of sharing, and so much of what's come out from this morning is really being able to take ideas, take knowledge, and take the courage that Stephen spoke about and make something happen. With that, we have a fantastic next speaker who's going to come up and give us her story when it comes to what it all took and what it's all about in terms of this shared economy we're now in. Please may I introduce Robin Chase, the CEO and the founder and former CEO of Zipcar, Buzzcar, and GoLoco. Thank you very much.
Hello. So I actually lived in Egypt for 4 years, and I have a huge affection for that country. And if you're a tourist and you go to the pyramids, and then you go to the gift store, you look at the postcards, and you see that people have been tourists in Egypt for a very long time. This is a photograph that's 100 years old, but you can go see sketches of that were drawn 200 years old. So just imagine that around the world for millennia, people have been wanting to go see Egypt. But what they didn't know, those tourists, is they didn't know places like a cafe in Khan Khalili in Cairo called El Fishawi. And as I look at this hotel, I would say that this hotel actually was kind of built on the El Fishawi allure. All of those beautiful windows and the Palm Palace is because we all wanted to have that kind of experience. And until recently, however, Zagat or Michelin guides would never bother to be reviewing a place like El Fishawi. But let me go back. TripAdvisor was invented, and let me just look at these numbers. 315 million people visit TripAdvisor every month, 190 million reviews of 4.5 million places in 45 countries. That could only happen if we participated together on a platform. And so it means that me sitting in my Cambridge, Massachusetts house, I could actually learn about a place called El Fishawi in Cairo, and I could say, wow, I've got to make sure I want to go there. So what's happening is a new organizational paradigm is happening, and it has 3 components. The first is excess capacity. All of those people who are visiting, they can write reviews. A platform for participation. This thing was built on top of this platform, and participating peers. And I call this organizational structure Peers, Inc. You will recognize this because if you look at all these companies are exactly this organizational structure. And this is the excess capacity that was built on it. My laptop, my time, my friends, my photographs, my stuff. This is why they're all great. And when you put this together, it has a potential to create 3 miracles that I want to share with you. So the first miracle, we can defy the laws of physics. Imagine that I, Robin Chase, say, you know what? I want to build the largest hotel chain in the world. I'm going to do it in 4 years. Go. I went and did some research, and I said, okay, who is the largest hotel chain in the world? It's the Intercontinental Hotel Group. It took them 65 years to build 645,000 rooms in 100 countries. Think of the physical level of effort to do that. Some of you know what I'm going to say next. Airbnb, in 4 years, produced that same number of rooms. And this is where I kind of do my amazing jumping up and down dance. I don't have time, I only have 5 minutes left, I can't give it to you. But really, this is world-changing from an economic perspective. The world has completely changed. And couchsurfing, which is now having its issues, but in 9 years, it had 2,500 rooms in every country in the world that you could stay at. This way of doing business changes everything. So that was miracle number 1. Here's what business as usual asset building would look like if over the first 4 years, this is how fast you could build hotels. This is how fast Airbnb collected its 650,000 rooms. Things have really changed. Okay, here's some more ways that you guys use. It's the same concept. In a few years, they had 2 million, and today they're 50 million users. And Let's move on. Miracle number 2, we can tap exponential learning. I want to talk about a company called Duolingo, which is free online language acquisition. The unit for learning languages is what can you learn in one semester of university level. It takes 130 hours to do that to learn one semester of college. The former king of this was the Rosetta Stone, and they would say, wow, we can teach you that amount of language in 54 hours. And so people who had big budgets would say, yeah, I'm buying that, great. Duolingo, I was talking to its CEO. He can conduct 100 experiments simultaneously. 150,000 people are doing each one of those experiments, and in 48 hours, he can tell you which way you learn best. He has got it down to 34 hours that you can do this. And let me just show you his growth curve. He's been in business for 3 years. 3 years, 50 million people are using his language instruction. He's teaching language more than every student in the US school system, and of course, many, many more. It is a phenomenal thing. Miracle number 3, we're moving along fast. So miracle number 3 is the right person will appear when you need them. And so we can think, is that Superman? No, I want to say all of us right now are way better than Superman. When Superman hears the call across, the city, A, he doesn't know the best way to get there because he didn't have someone tell him where the congestion among all those people flying, and he didn't have any eyes on the ground to say, here's what the situation looks like. He's just getting the call. All of us today have this in our path. So this company, Waze, that we talked about, this could have been me. Thursday, I live in Boston. It was 1 foot of snow fell the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We're driving up that highway. It looks almost exactly like this. We're seeing cars left and right. And my son's sitting in the front seat, and he says, look at that. My son's 24, and I'm thinking, oh, there's like a deer bounding across the street. How exciting. No, and I want to say we had the Waze app running. My husband's infatuated. So my son says, look at that, and I'm looking for the deer. And in fact, there's 2 cars immediately in front of my car that are having a car accident and sliding off the highway, looking like this. I want to say a split second later, Waze says, caution, accident ahead. And what I want to say is this is something that you can't get from computers and whatever. It took a real-life human to understand, to be able to say, in fact, that this thing that happened in the front that was a piece of metal was an accident. And so on average, so I don't even want to go through this, but Waze has people report things that they actually are doing. So if I summarize this peers and collaboration, these things are only happening because we have people and platforms working together. So we defy the laws of physics because the platform organized and unleashed that excess capacity, and we as individuals simultaneously got it, and we all did it together. We can tap exponential learning because the platform is able to analyze and look at all of our peer iterations, and iterations is what counts. And it's number 3, the right person will appear. The platform is doing all the supercomputing and the fancy peer learning, and it takes actual human beings to be able to do this local, real-time sensing adaptation around the edges. And I actually want to end for you that we are moving from the industrial economy to what I think of as the collaborative economy. And I will share with you why it is positively, absolutely happening. 4 reasons. Shared networked assets deliver more value than closed assets. So I invented Zipcar, where you guys only use your car 5% of the time. Those Zip cars are running 60% of the time. The amount of money coming out of that is much harder. Or if you think of open data, when you open up the value, more and more value is coming out. More and more people are seeing cool things to do with it. Number 2, more networked minds are smarter than just closed ones. So no matter how many smart people we are here in this room, we know there are vastly more smart people out there. And if we can find them, which we can with the internet, it's much better to be tapping everyone else than us alone. We know that when I contribute to something like this, I get way more than I give. Think of Wikipedia. I write 1 article, and I get the encyclopedia of the world. Or I want to say my taxes. I contribute taxes, and I get a library. I might donate 1 book, I get a library. And then the last thing, which is the most important, is that the benefits and opportunities of shared open assets are so much larger than the problems that we're afraid of with sharing open assets. And just a quick one would be like Wikipedia. We think, oh my God, all those people are going to say lies and write trash. There are those people. So what? It's a small thing. We get over it. We have this other thing. Think of email and spam. Spam is horrible. It's over there. So I leave you with this. This is why we're moving to the new economy, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I must say, Stephen did give a credit of a minute, so if you want to break into dance, you're more than welcome to use it for that.
Yeah.
Based on that, and you have an amazing ability to x-ray what's happening in parts of the economy and seeing those connections and seeing where it's going. Taking that x-ray vision and looking at it from a travel and tourism perspective, what are you seeing and what is the message that you would give this community of leaders of recognize this or avoid it at your peril? Please.
So I think one of the things that if I'd had more time I would have been happy to talk about is what should be the platform and what should be left to other people. And the platform should be platforms are done by companies, governments, institutions. They're doing all the things that people can't do. So they should be doing, so just think in mind, what should my company be doing? It's what an individual can't do. And when we think about the peer side of the equation, they should be doing the localization, customization, and specialization. So when we have these platforms, you want to leave to the many small parts all of that very fine-grained stuff. When I think about travel in particular, the joy of travel is that localization and customization. And so I think we're going to a place where we can get the best of both worlds. We can get all of those standards and consistency and the stuff that we really care about, and we can get the best of what people deliver, which is, their warmth, their special expertise, their stuff. And I think we will be seeing the whole shit talk about community and authenticity. That's what people are seeking, but I think we can now deliver that on these much bigger platforms that are very consistent. So as I say, we can get the best of both worlds.
It's a brilliant message. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for being with us. Great. Our final Terry Talk speaker is a gentleman who is very much close to our hearts. He has injected an energy into this organization and an excitement which has allowed a creativity which is quite unique, though I'm quite confident he's going to ban me from calling these Terry Talks ever again. So with that, Mr. Terry Dale.
All right. I have to start by saying, never in my wildest imagination did I think this would work out as well as it has. I've been standing back there, and I am so proud of each and every one of you, and Robin, who's coming up here. Let's give a round of applause, because I think they were extraordinary. Thank you so much. And if I have anything to do with it, we'll do this again next year, and it's because of every one of you. So thank you. So I decided to focus my remarks on numbers are half the equation. Now, it's not going to surprise you that I'm starting with a picture of me, circa 1970, and for two reasons. First, I want you to notice that the glasses haven't changed over the decades. And that's probably one of two reasons. Either it's that old adage, everything old is new again, or I just have bad fashion sense. I don't know which it is. But also, the reason I selected this picture, because I had a math teacher, Miss Porter, and at this early age, she drilled home how critical it was to understand numbers and the value that numbers can communicate. So I've carried Miss Porter with me through all these years, and I know she's looking down right now at USTOA and smiling on us because I have the honor of releasing our second PricewaterhouseCoopers study results. Now, these numbers are only possible with broad participation. And let me tell you, we had 85% of our members complete the PwC study. Now, PwC tells me that if a trade association can get somewhere close to 70%, that's really strong. What we accomplished is extraordinary, and it's because of the commitment of the people in this room that we hit 85%. Now, the numbers are so important when we're walking the halls of Congress, talking to our elected officials about the jobs that we generate, They're critical for when we talk to the trade press and the media about our economic footprint. But what I learned from the people who participate in this study, as well as every person in this room, that numbers are just half the equation. The other half are the faces behind the numbers. And that's where this rounded out picture about our industry really comes into clear view. It's the people that we touch around the world. It's the people that we rely on to create extraordinary experiences for our customers. And in many cases, they're life-changing experiences. So sprinkled out throughout my remarks, I'm going to share with you the faces behind the numbers as we face the facts. So I'm going to start with, this is Carol Demopoulos from Perillo Tours, and she's with a local tribal guide at a tiger reserve in Kerala, I got this wrong, Kerala, India. And what's really wonderful about these guides is that they have tremendous ecotourism programming that they're passing on to the customers. And what's fascinating also is that a few years ago, many of these guides were actually supporting themselves through illegal activities in the forest. Yet today, they're forest protectors. It's a wonderful story. So let's break down some of the numbers. We learned from PwC that we're a $13.5 billion industry. And beyond that, our members purchase $10 billion in goods and services in every corner of the world. Now that means that we're servicing roughly 8 million travelers who purchase roughly 4 million travel packages. Now we all know that that $10 billion figure can be broken down a little further, and I want to share with some of you today that 16.3 million room nights were filled by USTOA members in 2014, and we filled 4.7 million airline seats. It's pretty remarkable. But let's transition back now to another face and another story. This is Gerard Baker. He is the first Native American National Park Superintendent, the first one. And he's here with Jennifer Tomba in the picture from Tauk, and he serves as a consultant and a lecturer to Tauk guests, and he helps shapes programs for them in Yellowstone and Mount Rushmore. He's an icon, he's a mentor, and he's part of our family. So going back then, I find this particularly interesting about our numbers. So this takes the percentage change from 2012 to 13, and then 13 to 14. Look at that first column, 12 to 13, ranging from 11% over 16%. That's quite phenomenal. So Peter, you have to say as an economist, we were still in a pretty unsteady recovery mode, and yet our members had double-digit growth during that period of time. I'm so proud of that. And then when you wrap on top of that from 13 to 14, and we're still seeing solid growth, anywhere from 5 to 8%. So I think we have a lot to be proud of as far as what we're doing for the economy and the US citizens through jobs. So let's take a look at 2015 and the forecast. 95% of our members are again forecasting an increase in sales. And that looks like roughly 62% of our members are forecasting a boom year, which would be, again, potentially double-digit growth in 2015. And on the revenue side, again, 95% are very confident that they're going to see an increase in revenue. I think that's extraordinary when you look from then 2011, 2015, the kind of growth we've been experiencing, and yet still next year, we feel extraordinarily optimistic. So again, let's peer into the eyes of another story behind the faces. And this particular one is a personal one. I have to say, I feel like I carry extra weight with me today from this particular restaurant. It's Bizim Ev. And this is Sophia Anna, who is the owner, and her family has been feeding Globus customers for decades in the Ephesus region of Turkey. And everyone gets into the kitchen, creates the family recipes. And what's extraordinary is the kind of connectivity that the family has globally, because now there are cookbooks, there are recipes being shared online, and you have that local connection with this kitchen and this family. A wonderful, wonderful experience that I carry with me every single day. So let's go back now, again, to some more PwC statistics. Let's look at what we're calling hot destinations for 2015. Not too many surprises here. Italy, UK, China, Peru, France, Mexico, Australia, South Africa, Brazil, Vietnam. They're going to continue to perform, we believe, very well for us. And then let's take a look at what we're calling the emerging destinations. Now, Myanmar, for the past 3 years, has topped this list, and I think could very well in the future years to come. What's interesting to note, for the first time, we see Cuba and Croatia enter this list. And for Cuba to come in at number 2, under the circumstances and the challenges of taking US citizens to Cuba through the people-to-people licensing process, obviously we have a sense of optimism. I'm not sure how much it's going to change as far as to improve the licensing, but we think Cuba has tremendous potential, Croatia as well. And then I would tell you to take a look and hold on to Cambodia, because Cambodia is going to be the face of our next story. This is a restaurant in Cambodia called Ramdang. It's supported by a USTOA member. This restaurant takes 80 kids who live on the streets every year, and they train them on the hospitality industry. But they take it one step further. After they've trained them for a year, then they place them in full-time jobs throughout the community, and they have a 90% success rate. I think that's an extraordinary story about how we're taking kids from the street and helping make them employable. So here's some big news, separate from the PwC study. I mentioned yesterday our partnership with Cornell University and their MBA school through what we call our Innovation Lab. And we asked the team of MBA candidates to create for us a package travel index. So again, referencing Peter, there's the consumer confidence index, and this is the same type of vehicle that we've never had as an industry. So we just wrapped up our first survey this past October of 1,500 US citizens who have a passport. And from a demographic perspective, we made our best attempt and came very close to mirroring the US Census report. And so the first thing we took a look at and asked the consumers about their attitudes towards travel in the future. Now, this is broken down between male and female. So I'm going to start with the only area where they agree, which doesn't happen that often. The very top one is, am I interested in visiting international countries? 81% from both males and females said yes. Then, not surprising, I'm going to skip down and talk about how they feel about their financial future and their confidence. Men, not surprisingly, 67% feel confident, women, 61%. But when we ask the question about where does travel fall as a priority for you and putting aside those dollars, it flips. Women, 57% say travel is a high priority, men, 51%. So let's keep the women in our good graces, obviously. Now, how many trips do they plan to take? 3 plus. That's good news for 2015. And then the reasons for travel, and this isn't going to be surprising, it's time with family and it's relaxation. So let's focus on family again, because I'm going to introduce you to another family. This is the Marston family of VBT. It's Greg and Caroline. And they have created a foundation called Shake Hands with the World. And they raise money for spinal cord injury and cancer research. But as you can tell from this picture, they have a great time on their bikes doing it. And there are countless members of ours who have foundations like this, who participate in raising tens of thousands of dollars all across this great country. So let's go back again to the index. Average number of travelers next year, we're seeing 3. They'll spend roughly $2,500 per traveler. And then where will they travel? 68% have indicated North America, and 32% say international. Now, what this does, it becomes a baseline for us. So next April, we'll go back to 1,500 consumers, and then next October, we'll go back to 1,500 consumers. And that's where we'll start to see the fluctuations. And that's where we'll be able to get the value of doing this on a consistent basis, so we understand the consumer's confidence towards package travel for our particular members. And the trends will develop. We'll share those with you as members of USTOA. We have a lot of confidence in the value of having something like this in our back pocket. But I want you to always be mindful of the fact that you can do many programs like what we see here from Colette. They are helping a school called the Tenderfeet School in Nairobi, Kenya, which they're providing food and education for these students, and they actually helped build a school just back in 2009. And these faces that we see, you look into their eyes, they're part of our family. They create the experience for our customers. And our customers come back happy with memories that they share with families and friends, which is why USTOA makes the world your home. Thank you very much. All right. I have to have a question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anyone like to volunteer a question for Mr. Terry Day? Terry, you have spent time giving us solid numbers as to why we should be confident and why we know this industry is making a difference, but you put a face to it. With that in mind, please can you complete the sentence, speaking to all of these people in this room, what you do every day matters because?
We make a difference in people's lives.
How?
By creating these experiences that can't be duplicated or doing it on your own. So our members have the access, have the relationships, the confidence in the people that they're partnering with, and it's extended then to our customers. And there's nothing greater than sharing the world and knowing that our members are just the best that they are at what they do.
Which does what for the people of the countries that you touch?
Well, it creates jobs, it helps build schools, builds infrastructure, creates a tax base, and it improves their quality of life.
Which gives hope. And with that,
gives hope.
We thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brilliant. We have reached the end of the USTOA Terry Talks. We have heard from across the spectrum of outstanding panelists why we have to be inspired about the future, why even seeing what's happening in Washington, there's opportunity for it to come right, to see how the future generation of marketers, they are the people that are going to keep that inspiration in the future and bring it to life to keep people wanting to discover the world. We've spoken about why ultimately there are destinations around the world that will continue to feed the dream to travel and need the support of the global travel and tourism community. And that problem is an incredible opportunity because unless we share and pull together, we're never going to have the ability to care. With that, I say thank you all to our great panelists. USTOA Terry Talks has nothing further to say. God bless and enjoy the conference.